Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Dillian Whyte is out of the fight with Joe Joyce, with it being confirmed by Queensberry to TalkSport that he suffered a hand injury. So this was the main event for what would have been the first Queensberry event on DAZN, and obviously that event is still going ahead, but the main event will not be. As we know, that card was going to be heavyweight heavy, including also David Adelaide on the undercard, also Richard Riakporhe versus Lawrence Okoli. So Adelaide versus Jamie Shakiva. So as you can see here, the headline, chaos. Dillian Whyte pulls out of Joe Joyce fight as organisers scramble to find last-minute replacement. So the story, it says, 3 well-placed sources told TalkSport that he had withdrawn from the contest after suffering an injury, with a replacement being sought. Queensberry Promotions have now released a statement confirming Whyte's injury and subsequent withdrawal. It read, due to a hand injury sustained during training camp, Dillian Whyte will no longer be able to complete his scheduled bout on April 5 against Joe Joyce at the Co-op Live in Manchester. A replacement opponent is now being finalised for the Juggernaut, and an announcement regarding this will be made shortly. And one source confirmed that Jermaine Franklin, who lost a close decision to Whyte in 2022, is in the running. So a few things to unpack from this announcement. So this was, I think, for Dillian Whyte, a real opportunity to try and get himself back in the mix, and so too for Joe Joyce. It was a loser leaves town type fight. Both Joyce and Whyte in recent times have looked past their best, and in fact Dillian Whyte in recent times has looked absolutely washed, but Joyce not too far behind. But both big names and still a bit of star power, and this would have put both back in the conversation. And for Whyte, if this is a legitimate injury, obviously it's a setback, because some of these opportunities may not come that frequently, and as it is, he's kind of been out in the wilderness for a couple of years now, having a few different fights, most recently against the likes of Ebenezer Tete, which have been, very small cards. He's fought infrequently. There was the failed test ahead of what would have been a fight with Anthony Joshua, and since then he's been really inactive for the most part. The Christian Hammer fight as well. Also this fight with Tete hasn't looked fantastic, and as we know, he got knocked out brutally by Tyson Fury, about 3 years ago, and at that point, he didn't look good, and he seemingly got worse. So the other thing I first thought, and it was maybe the cynic in me, effectively thinking, well, has he pulled out here because something else better has come up, a la potentially an Anthony Joshua fight? So if ultimately in a few months' time he's all of a sudden announced in a big fight with someone else and it's a bigger fight than the Joe Joyce fight, well, we'll have our answer. But if this is a legitimate injury and he can't compete, well, we wish him well and hope he gets better soon. But obviously bad news for this card. And I guess the other thing that I thought straight away was it a testing related issue? Has there been a failed test? And you'd like to think not, but certainly Whyte does have history, multiple failed tests in his career. So for Joe Joyce, not great. So he's still going to be on this card. Whether he still headlines it, unclear. If they manage to get a decent opponent like a Jermaine Franklin, I think that is actually a decent fight. Perhaps even a tougher fight than Dillian Whyte. If Jermaine Franklin's got one thing, it's durability. Dillian Whyte has looked pretty chinny in recent years, and I think Franklin is a much fresher fighter, but in terms of the risk stakes, not necessarily a huge puncher. But then again, Joe Joyce is not hard to find, and in recent times he's also been clipped a lot, taken a lot of punishment, and seemingly that chin was cracked by Zhang Jilei a couple of years ago on multiple occasions, and he hasn't looked the same. So it's going to be interesting times to see what happens here, but I don't mind Jermaine Franklin as what you would say is a comeback fight for Joe Joyce. I think actually it's the same sort of scenario. If he doesn't beat Franklin, then you have to ask the question, where does he go from there? Is it off to retirement? He is basically on 40 years old, and the decline has been rapid in the last couple of years. But for Franklin, he's been looking for opportunities and waiting for something to come up. So if it's him, If he is the one that's chosen, it also gives him a potential pathway to a much bigger fight, potentially on a Saudi card. There's a number of different fighters that are kind of on the outside looking in to some extent, waiting for an opportunity, and he could be Johnny on the spot, or there could be others. So we'll have to see what they come up with, but if Whyte is truly injured, it's a shame for him, but if he turns up on a big fight in 2 months or 3 months' time, I think we'll all give a little bit of the side eye about why he's pulled out of this one. But for now, I guess we'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but we'll see what sort of shakes down. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.